What if the spells you grew up admiring weren't meant to protect, but to control? We all remember the dazzling duels, the heroic last stands, the classic Expelliarmus flying from Harry's wand. But beneath the surface of these so-called heroic spells lies a history no one talks about. A history soaked in manipulation, death, and ancient rituals that would make even Voldemort hesitate. Because magic in the wizarding world wasn't created with good intentions. It was forged in fear, war, and power. And the strongest spells? They weren't designed to save lives. They were designed to end them. This is the part of the story Hogwarts never taught you. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at Harry's spells the same way again. Long before wands and wizarding schools, magic was raw, unstable, dangerous. The earliest witches and wizards didn't cast spells for defense or healing. They used magic to dominate, to curse, to destroy. Entire villages vanished in the name of power. And these weren't rogue sorcerers. This was the norm. Over centuries, these dark origins were buried, rewritten into fairy tales, hidden behind the polished halls of Hogwarts. But traces remain. Some of the most powerful spells used today, even the ones Harry himself relied on, have roots in forgotten hexes from an era where magic was feared, not studied. Expelliarmus? Once a dueling curse. Lumos? A flare used for magical hunts. And Avada Kedavra? We'll get to that. So the question is, if magic was born from violence, why are 11-year-olds being taught to wield it? And that leads us straight into a truth even the Ministry won't admit. We've all heard it. Use one of the unforgivable curses, and it's a one-way ticket to Azkaban. But that's not entirely true, because the moment things got messy, during the war, during the chaos, even the good guys broke the rules. Dumbledore used the Imperious Curse. Harry hit a Death Eater with Cruciatus, and no one batted an eye. So what gives? Turns out, the Ministry of Magic has a silent rule. If your intentions are good, the curses don't count. But that's a slippery slope. Who decides what good means? Who gets a pass? And who gets locked away? Some believe there's an internal list, an unofficial whitelist of wizards protected by politics and legacy. A list Harry and his allies just happen to be on. And it gets darker. There are whispers that the unforgivable curses weren't always forbidden. Some historians claim they were standard military protocol during magical conflicts centuries ago, even taught in Hogwarts under the table. So maybe these spells aren't unforgivable at all. Maybe they're just inconvenient truths. And if the good guys get to bend the rules, what other spells are hiding behind moral loopholes? Let's talk about the one Harry used the most, the one no one questions, but should. To the outside world, Expelliarmus is harmless. The good guy spell, Harry's go-to move, a non-lethal way to win without killing. But that's exactly the lie we were meant to believe. Because Expelliarmus wasn't designed to protect anyone. It was created for dueling, a spell to strip your opponent of their weapon and leave them completely vulnerable, usually followed by something much worse. It's not about peace. It's about control. And Harry didn't just use it once or twice. He relied on it. even in life or death situations where lethal force would have made more sense. Why? Some fans think Dumbledore conditioned Harry to use it, to appear merciful, to play the role of the reluctant hero. But behind that image was a calculated tactic: disarm, humiliate, and if needed, let someone else do the killing. Even Voldemort noticed. During their final duel, he mocked Harry for it. "You dare use that spell against me?" Because he knew the truth. Expelliarmus wasn't noble. It was a message. And if that spell isn't what it seems, what about the deadliest one of all? You know it as the Killing Curse. 2 words, 1 flash of green, instant death, Avada Kedavra. But what if it wasn't always meant to kill? The phrase Avada Kedavra sounds like gibberish, until you realize it's rooted in ancient Aramaic. It loosely translates to, "I destroy as I speak." Some scholars believe it was once part of ritual magic, not for murder, but for sacrifice. A spell to release the soul from the body, offered to higher powers in exchange for protection, healing, or darker favors. And here's the part the ministry won't confirm. Before it was outlawed, Avada Kedavra may have been used by healers as a way to ease suffering in terminal cases. A mercy spell. So how did it go from sacred rite to the darkest curse imaginable? Some say it was corrupted by dark wizards during the first magical wars. Others believe it was always dangerous, and that the healing narrative was just a cover story. Either way, the spell we now fear may have once been revered, and yet, despite its ban, it's still teachable, if you mean it. That's not just a magical condition, that's a psychological one. To cast Avada Kedavra, you need pure intent, to kill, not self-defense, not fear, willful, focused malice. Which begs the question, why even let that spell exist at all? Maybe because erasing a curse this old isn't possible. And the story gets even darker with a spell that wasn't ancient, but was invented by a lonely, angry teenager and nearly killed Draco Malfoy. Most deadly spells are passed down through generations. You know it as the Killing Curse. 2 words, 1 flash of green, instant death, Avada Kedavra. But what if it wasn't always meant to kill? The phrase Avada Kedavra sounds like gibberish, until you realize it's rooted in ancient Aramaic. It loosely translates to, "I destroy as I speak." Some scholars believe it was once part of ritual magic, not for murder, but for sacrifice. A spell to release the soul from the body, offered to higher powers in exchange for protection, healing, or darker favors. And here's the part the ministry won't confirm. Before it was outlawed, Avada Kedavra may have been used by healers as a way to ease suffering in terminal cases. A mercy spell. So how did it go from sacred rite to the darkest curse imaginable? Some say it was corrupted by dark wizards during the first magical wars. Others believe it was always dangerous, and that the healing narrative was just a cover story. Either way, the spell we now fear may have once been revered, and yet, despite its ban, it's still teachable, if you mean it. That's not just a magical condition, that's a psychological one. To cast Avada Kedavra, you need pure intent. To kill, not self-defense, not fear, willful, focused malice. Which begs the question, why even let that spell exist at all? Maybe because erasing a curse this old isn't possible. And the story gets even darker with a spell that wasn't ancient, but was invented by a lonely, angry teenager and nearly killed Draco Malfoy. Most deadly spells are passed down through generations. But this one, it was made by a teenager, in secret, and left in a textbook like a forgotten diary entry. Sectumsempra. At first glance, it sounds like Latin gibberish, but the effects? Devastating. When Harry cast it on Draco, he didn't know what it did. And let's not forget the Forbidden Forest, dueling clubs, and practical exams that seem more like simulations for war zones. Why? Because Hogwarts was founded during a time of magical conflict. And some say it never really stopped preparing for the next one. There's a theory, whispered, never written, that Hogwarts exists not to educate, but to arm, to quietly mold the next generation of magical soldiers. Dumbledore knew it. So did Snape. And even Harry, by the end, realized that what he'd learned wasn't just knowledge. It was survival training. Which makes you wonder, if this is what the approved spells look like, what about the ones they're hiding? Let's dig into that. The hidden history of spell creation and the secrets buried by design. Ever wondered where spells actually come from? We're told most are ancient, passed down, discovered in old tomes, refined over time. But that's only half the story. The truth? Many modern spells were invented in secret, then quietly renamed, reclassified, or erased from history altogether. There's no official record of who created Stupefy, Expelliarmus, or even Protego. Just vague references, no names, no dates. It's like someone wanted to wipe the slate clean. And it's not just about credit, it's about control. Some researchers believe entire families were silenced after creating dangerous spells. Others think certain curses, like those used during magical wars, were stripped from public memory to avoid mass panic or uprising. Even worse, there are whispers of spells that were too powerful, spells that could bend minds, resurrect the dead, or erase someone from existence. These weren't banned. They were buried. Only a few elite families, the Malfoys, the Blacks, even the Dumbledores, had access to this hidden knowledge. And here's the kicker. The Ministry's Department of Mysteries? It's rumored to house thousands of unreleased spells, locked away, studied, and kept from the public under the excuse of safety. But is it really about safety or about power? Because in a world where magic means influence, controlling which spells exist is the same as controlling who survives. And once you realize that, the entire idea of heroic spells starts to fall apart. We grew up believing magic was simple. Good versus evil, light versus dark. But the more you peel back the layers, the more you realize there's nothing innocent about the strongest spells in Harry Potter. They weren't created to protect. They were forged in fear, war, and blood, rewritten over centuries to hide their true purpose. Expelliarmus wasn't merciful. Avada Kedavra wasn't always forbidden. And Sectumsempra? That was never supposed to be found. Even Hogwarts, the place we all thought was safe, might have been training kids for a battle that never really ended. So the next time you see Harry raise his wand, ask yourself, was he really the hero? Or just another soldier using the same dark magic, only on the right side? Because in the wizarding world, spells don't care who casts them. And the truth behind them is far darker than anyone ever imagined.